Under the dim lights of a dormitory in Los Angeles, California, an ordinary night suddenly turned into a nightmare. A scream ripped through the darkness, and then flames erupted violently.
Oh my God, the whole apartment is on fire.
By the time police and firefighters arrived, the building was already choked with smoke, and students were fleeing in panic. They pounded on every door, but Andrea's room was locked, a detail that immediately seemed off. When the door was finally forced open, there was nothing left inside but fire, smoke, and the silhouette of a motionless figure on the bed.
A lot of tears for a woman whose body was found inside of a burned apartment near the campus of UCLA.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
At first, everyone thought it was a tragic accident, but only minutes later, details at the scene made investigators shudder. This was a brutal murder carefully staged to look like a fire.
She was killed and murdered. My friend was murdered in my apartment.
Who killed Andrea? That's the chilling question after this 21-year-old sorority sister was found slain. Cops believe Andrea DelVesco's apartment was torched. They're treating her death as murder.
Andrea DelVesco was born on June 29, 1994, in Chicago, Illinois. She grew up in a loving family, surrounded by her siblings and parents. They were well off financially, and later moved to Austin, Texas.
From the day she was born, we knew that she was an angel on earth.
Andrea graduated from high school in 2012, and during her teenage years, she realized how passionate she was about sports. In school, she played on the hockey team and the lacrosse team. She was also a National Commended Merit Scholar and won numerous awards for her academic achievements, especially in Latin, English, and Spanish, while studying at St. Andrew's Episcopal School. Because of all that, Andrea decided to enroll at the University of California, Los Angeles, in the fall of 2012, double majoring in psychology and Spanish. Around that time, she adopted a small chihuahua from a rescue shelter. Not long after, she began volunteering there on a regular basis. In her first week on campus, she joined a sorority and quickly formed a close-knit friend group.
Andrea's sorority is one of the most popular on campus, and its Facebook page features video of the sisters putting on a show.
Andrea moved into the dorms with them and spent the next few years focusing on her studies. She also took on part-time jobs whenever she could. While her family could easily have supported her financially, Andrea wanted to contribute on her own. In 2015, at the age of 21, Andrea entered her senior year at UCLA. Senior members of sororities and fraternities were allowed to rent small studio apartments just off campus. It was a privilege seen as a milestone, a status symbol that also gave them a taste of independence from dorm life.
She loved the UCLA campus. Such a lovely neighborhood, and it seemed really safe and quiet and peaceful.
Andrea and her sorority sisters seized the opportunity and rented an apartment only a few minutes' walk from campus. September was an especially important time for her sorority because it marked recruitment season when they welcomed new freshmen into the house. Andrea and her friends worked tirelessly to prepare for it. On the night of September 20th, they spent hours setting up displays, painting posters, creating decorations, and making sure everything was ready for the big day. As the night grew late, the girls drifted back to their rooms one by one. Andrea stayed up with a friend in the living room, talking until about 3:30 a.m. She eventually fell asleep on the couch, but after a while she woke up and went back to her bedroom. A few hours later, Andrea's roommate, who lived on the upper floor, was jolted awake by the sound of a woman screaming and a dog barking. The noise seemed to come from downstairs. She tried calling Andrea, but Andrea did not pick up. Worried, she called the police.
I thought it was coming from downstairs.
And officers arrived within minutes. When they entered the building, everything was quiet again. They walked around the apartment but found no signs of a break-in or anything obviously wrong. Most of the other girls were still asleep, so the officers decided not to wake them. Assuming it might have been a nightmare or something harmless, they left. But only a few minutes later, Andrea's roommate heard a loud thud from downstairs. She rushed out to the balcony and saw smoke pouring out of Andrea's room, followed quickly by flames spreading at an alarming rate. Even more terrifying, she saw a man wrapped in a blanket running out of Andrea's room.
This is what the caller later told police.
I just called the cops about a girl screaming, and I just saw the guy who was in there run out of her room, and it looks like her room is on fire.
Her room's on fire? Okay.
I don't know, there's smoke coming from everywhere.
What?
Oh my God,
Okay.
the whole thing is,
Okay, ma'am.
the whole apartment is on fire.
At that moment, the fire alarm started blaring, and students began evacuating the building. Some of Andrea's friends tried to get into her room, but the door was locked, a strange detail, because the girls almost never locked their doors. Using a spare key, they finally managed to open it. Inside, the room was filled with smoke and fire. Through the thick gray haze, they could just make out the shape of someone lying motionless on the bed. They called out Andrea's name, but there was no response. The flames were spreading too fast, forcing them to retreat. When firefighters arrived, the scene was pure chaos. Students were gathered outside, and it quickly became clear Andrea was still missing. The fire tore through the building at terrifying speed, and it took more than 15 minutes and a total of 32 firefighters to fully extinguish the blaze. When they were finally able to enter Andrea's room, firefighters found a body lying on the bed. Police were immediately called in. The fire had caused such extensive damage that the body could not be visually identified, so it was sent to the medical examiner's office. Even so, detectives quickly realized who it most likely was. Other students told them the room belonged to Andrea, and she was the only one who had not made it out that night. Firefighters also found Andrea's Chihuahua still alive in the room, and the dog was rushed to a veterinary clinic for treatment. Although official identification would take time, news of the tragedy spread across campus almost instantly. Within hours, thousands of UCLA students knew what had happened, and most assumed Andrea had died in some sort of accident, perhaps an electrical fault or a candle left burning. But from the very beginning, the fire department was skeptical. None of the electrical outlets had been damaged, and there was no sign of an accidental fire in the room. Instead, they discovered something unusual: a trash can placed on the bed, right next to the body, a strange and unsettling detail. After a closer inspection, they concluded that the fire had started inside the trash can, meaning someone had put it on the bed and deliberately set it alight. It was almost impossible to imagine Andrea doing that to herself. The firefighters reported this finding to the police.
We do have a fatality. That's basically what I have. We found an adult female in the fire after it was put out.
And soon forensic specialists began combing through the room in detail. What they found made the situation even more horrifying: large blood stains all over the bed and on the floor. That detail alone completely shattered the idea of an accidental fire. In an accidental blaze, there would be no reason for that much blood to be present. Meanwhile, forensic experts struggled to confirm the victim's identity, as the intense fire had even destroyed her fingerprints. In the end, they identified her as Andrea through dental records. What they discovered next was even more brutal. Her body bore 19 stab wounds, ruling out any possibility that this was merely an accident. There was another crucial finding. The medical examiner discovered there was no smoke in her lungs, indicating that Andrea had died before the fire was set. As for whether she had been sexually assaulted, there were no clear signs, but the severity of the burns made it impossible to say for certain. One thing they could state definitively was that there was no remaining DNA evidence from the attacker. The case was now officially treated as a homicide. Investigators began interviewing every sorority member living in the complex.
I just can't believe it. Like, I'm in shock a lot. I'm mostly just like, I wonder how the school year is going to start because of it.
They learned that Andrea did not have a boyfriend at the time and did not seem to be in conflict with anyone.
We talked to UCLA students who lived near the victim.
No, everyone was just like trying to wake her up because I think she was like passed out because from the smoke. Everyone was yelling her name, and she just didn't come out, I guess.
Did meet her last night. It was just a normal day for her, just hanging out with her friends. She was perfectly fine. Like, she came, she introduced herself. We like spoke for like 15, 20 minutes, and then she went back into the apartment. Like, there was no problem.
She affected so many people in so many positive ways that I'm just beginning to understand.
From the day she was born, we knew that she was an angel on earth.
One student, the very one who had called the police before the fire broke out, revealed a disturbing detail. That night, she had driven her boyfriend to the airport and returned home at around 5:30 a.m. She walked through the sorority courtyard, where a staircase led up to her room. As she climbed the stairs and started unlocking her door, she suddenly heard a sound behind her. When she turned around, she saw a man standing at the bottom of the stairs. The moment he realized she had spotted him, he took off running. Terrified, she hurried into her room and locked the door. She considered calling the police but eventually talked herself out of it. Maybe he was just visiting another girl in the building, or just some student passing through, she thought. She had not seen his face clearly, but she remembered what he was wearing. A black baseball cap, a dark t-shirt, and jeans. Still shaken, she called her boyfriend and told him what had happened. He tried to reassure her, and eventually she fell asleep. But only 45 minutes later, she was awakened again by strange noises downstairs, the very sounds that had prompted her to call the police earlier. After the officers left, she heard another noise. Stepping out onto the balcony, she saw a man climbing out of Andrea's window, wrapped in a red blanket. She immediately recognized him as the same man she had seen at the bottom of the stairs less than an hour before. She shouted at him, but he ran off. She rushed downstairs, hoping to see where he was going, but he had disappeared. What she did see was a red Nissan pulling away from the area. She did not catch the license plate, but one detail on the rear window jumped out at her. 3 large letters she recognized at once. They were the symbol of a fraternity called Lambda Alpha. The investigators were very interested in this lead, but they remained cautious. The area was crowded with students and known for constant parties, so the red Nissan could have belonged to any student driving home. Even so, they pursued this angle, questioning every member of Lambda Alpha, the fraternity whose letters had appeared on the car. None of the members admitted to owning a red Nissan, and no one claimed to know who it belonged to. The investigators then spoke with students who lived in the apartment complex across from Andrea's building. That was when they discovered another crime that had taken place that same night. According to the students, their apartment had been broken into, and a laptop, a Bluetooth speaker, and various other belongings had been stolen. This immediately caught the investigators' attention. They quickly realized that in order to use the stolen Bluetooth speaker, its new owner would have to register it online on the manufacturer's website. Acting at once, they contacted the company, provided the serial number, and asked to be notified the moment anyone tried to activate the device. While they waited for a response, news of Andrea's death spread beyond the UCLA campus.
Andrea DelVesco was found stabbed to death in her California apartment, which someone also set on fire. Not long after, prosecutors say surveillance video shows one of the suspects going to the other's apartment wearing clothing that DelVesco owned. Now investigators say it's all about forensic evidence. But as this case moves to the courts, we've also learned just days before she was killed.
At first, the investigators did not reveal that Andrea's death was a homicide. Most people, including her family, believed she had died in a tragic accident. Her parents only learned the horrifying truth later, through the sorority sisters' accounts. By then, they had already flown to Los Angeles, and Andrea's mother insisted on seeing her daughter's body, unable to accept that she was truly gone.
It astounds me and horrifies me that the police could have left and not made sure that all the girls in the apartment were okay. If they had gone into the apartment, maybe Andrea would be alive today. We'll never know if, when they responded to the initial 911 call, if Andrea was alive or not. But we do know that the fire hadn't been set then. So no matter what, we could have seen Andrea as we remembered her before her body was so badly burned.
As for Andrea's dog, the veterinarians tried to save the tiny Chihuahua but could not. Heartbroken, her parents went to the clinic to say goodbye, taking some small comfort in the thought that the little dog would now be reunited with Andrea in heaven. Meanwhile, the investigators kept chasing the lead about the red Nissan, but it went nowhere. Days passed without a breakthrough, until the call they had been waiting for finally came. The stolen Bluetooth speaker had just been activated, giving them an IP address that led to a man named Joseph who lived in Fresno, about 3 hours' drive from UCLA. Police went straight to his home, where Joseph admitted he was the one who had registered the speaker, but insisted it was not his. He said it belonged to his roommate, a man named Alberto. Joseph explained that a few days earlier, Alberto had gone to Los Angeles for a concert and returned on September 22nd, just 1 day after Andrea was killed. When he came back, Alberto brought the stolen Bluetooth speaker with him, along with various other items, including dishes, towels, and several bottles of alcohol. When asked where those items had come from, Alberto said that a friend in Los Angeles had just moved and given him things they did not want to take along. Digging deeper, investigators learned that Alberto was a 22-year-old student at Fresno State University with no criminal record. However, his exact whereabouts at that moment were unclear, and it took several days for them to track down the house where he was staying. On September 26th, police surrounded the residence and arrested Alberto. At the station, Alberto claimed he had gone to Los Angeles to visit a friend who lived near UCLA. He said they had gone to a concert together and then spent the next few days hopping from party to party before heading back. When an investigator asked about the Bluetooth speaker, Alberto initially pretended to know nothing about it. However, once he was confronted with the evidence that the stolen speaker had been found in his roommate's home, his story began to shift. This time, Alberto claimed the speaker had actually been brought by his friend from Los Angeles, the one who had supposedly given him a ride back to Fresno. But investigators quickly uncovered a major inconsistency. Alberto's roommate said he had seen Alberto arrive home alone, carrying the speaker and all the stolen items into the garage. Cornered by this evidence, Alberto changed his story yet again. This time, he admitted that he was the one who had stolen the items. He explained that that night he and a friend had gone to a student party where some people were rude, drunk, and obnoxious. In a haze of alcohol and anger, he decided to teach them a lesson by stealing their belongings, the laptop, the speaker, and anything else he could carry. He insisted he had been so drunk he could barely remember what he was doing. Alberto added another detail. He said that at around 5:30 in the morning, after leaving the party, he and his friend had been confronted by a man hiding behind a trash bin. This man had supposedly pulled a gun and demanded that they hand over their things. Instead of complying, they ran, and the stranger fired shots at them as they fled. When investigators asked him to describe the gunman, Alberto's account matched exactly what Andrea's neighbor had reported seeing that night. Even so, the investigators remained skeptical of his story, especially since none of the neighbors had reported hearing gunshots that morning. They kept pressing him, asking whether he had entered any women's dorms while he was in Los Angeles. Alberto admitted that he had met 2 female students through a mutual friend, but insisted that was all. As the pressure mounted, the investigators told him outright that they did not believe any part of his story. Alberto shifted his account yet again. This time, he said that at the party where he had stolen the speaker, his friend Eric had met a girl who lived directly across the way and decided to go home with her. Alberto said he did not know the girl's name, but when he described her appearance, it matched Andrea. He went even further, describing the clothes she had been wearing that night, down to her underwear, and then accidentally let her name slip. The investigators realized he was very likely making things up on the spot, but they also knew they needed every detail they could pry out of him. When they demanded that he explain further, Alberto put his head in his hands, sat in silence for a few minutes, and finally muttered, "All right, it was Eric." According to Alberto, just a few minutes after Eric left the party with the girl, he came back in a state of obvious panic. Alberto said Eric told them they had to leave immediately because he had done something very serious. According to Alberto, Eric confessed that he had attacked the girl, and the two of them left the party together. As they were leaving, Eric threw away a pair of rubber gloves, the same gloves he had been wearing when he walked out of the sorority house. After that, Alberto said that when he later saw the news about Andrea's murder, he realized what his friend had done. He texted Eric demanding the truth, and Eric supposedly admitted that he had killed her. The investigators remained skeptical of Alberto's constantly shifting story, but they had no choice except to follow this lead. They asked where Eric lived, and Alberto directed them to an apartment complex only about 5 minutes from Andrea's place. Police went to Eric's door and began questioning him about that night. Eric admitted that he and Alberto had gone to the party, but insisted that nothing unusual had happened. He said they went back to his apartment at around 3 in the morning, and that he slept straight through until nearly 8. He also said he had been so drunk that his memories of the night were very hazy. Even under intense questioning, Eric stuck to his story, insisting he had been so intoxicated that he could barely remember leaving the apartment, let alone where they went. Even so, investigators now had enough evidence to arrest both men, and obtain warrants to search their homes. As the two were being booked into jail, officers noticed something alarming. Alberto's hands were covered in scratches. They looked like the kind of injuries someone might get from a struggle, the kind of marks a victim could leave while fighting back. When asked about them, Alberto brushed it off, saying he had gotten into a fight at a party but could not remember who he had fought. Soon after, the forensics team searched Eric's apartment and found stains that looked like blood that someone had tried to clean up. Samples were sent to the lab right away. Investigators then tracked down Alberto's car, the red Nissan, with the fraternity letters on the rear window. It turned out Alberto had once been a member of Lambda Chi Alpha, though not at UCLA. He had previously belonged to a Lambda Chi Alpha chapter in Fresno, but had been expelled for bad behavior. Finally, police searched Alberto's residence, and what they found there erased any remaining doubt. In a trash bag, they discovered the red blanket that Andrea's sorority sister had seen wrapped around the man fleeing from the balcony, a blood-stained knife, and Alberto's clothing, including his underwear. Even more disturbing, there was also a pair of women's underwear in the bag. All of this evidence was sent to the lab for testing. In the meantime, one of Alberto's neighbors came forward with information that immediately caught investigators' attention. He said that when Alberto returned from Los Angeles, he told him that a student had been murdered right across the street from where he had been partying. What made this detail stand out was not just that Alberto knew about the killing, but how much he seemed to know. According to the neighbor, Alberto described the crime scene in chilling detail. The victim had been sexually assaulted, stabbed, and the home had been set on fire to destroy the evidence. None of those details had ever been released to the public. He even bragged that the police would never catch the killer, saying the crime had been done too cleanly. The investigators strongly disagreed and kept digging into the growing pile of evidence against Alberto. When the forensic analysis of Alberto's car was complete, it too was found to be covered in blood. The blood from the car, the knife, and Alberto's clothing all matched, confirming it was Andrea's. With that evidence in hand, prosecutors formally charged both Alberto and Eric with murder. However, investigators still were not convinced that Eric had played an active role in the crime. It was entirely possible that Eric had no idea what his friend had done. But with both men tied to the scene, authorities found it difficult not to charge him alongside Alberto. After news of the arrests broke in the media, a new witness came forward. He told police that at around 5:30 in the morning, he had been near Andrea's home collecting bottles and cans. According to this witness, a man approached and asked if he knew how to fight. When the witness said no, the man walked straight toward the building where Andrea lived. The witness also noticed a red Nissan parked nearby, with someone sitting inside. When he was brought in for a lineup, the witness immediately pointed out the man who had approached him. It was Alberto. This testimony became a crucial piece of the investigation. It showed that Alberto was the one who walked toward Andrea's building, while Eric remained in the car, making it less likely that Eric had directly participated in the murder. Investigators began to believe that Eric truly might not have known what his friend was about to do. Eventually, prosecutors reduced the charges against Eric. He was no longer accused of murder but instead faced charges of aiding and abetting, along with burglary for the theft from the other home that night. In the year 2017, Eric's attorney reached a plea deal. Prosecutors agreed to try him separately from Alberto. Eric pleaded guilty to the lesser charges and was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison. Alberto's trial began in the year 2018.
Alberto Medina, he will never be a free man ever again. According to this judge, this man will spend the rest of his life locked behind bars. That was the judge's decision today.
Murder with a special circumstance that it was committed during a burglary, the court will impose the term prescribed by law, life in prison without the possibility of parole. This is the maximum sentence I may impose by law. He will never be released.
The loss of Andrea, my bright light, my joy, my love, my friend, my daughter, my support, my treasure, my angel. I will miss her every day because of the heartless, brutal actions of Alberto Medina.
Never did I think she would have been laying in that room with floor-to-ceiling flames, especially murdered by a man who did not know her, who stabbed her 19 times and lit the room on fire to torture her body, to get rid of evidence. She was killed and murdered. My friend was murdered in my apartment.
That he is being sentenced on September 21st is a statement from a higher power. This is the date that he made the choice to take my wonderful, amazing daughter's life.
He brutally murdered a beautiful, innocent person. He's seriously wounded an entire community. He must never walk free again.
A maximum sentence without parole, spending the rest of his life behind bars for Alberto Medina.
This case is a grim reminder that evil can appear very close to home, very suddenly, and that sometimes a single terrible decision is enough to destroy many lives. The hope in retelling her story is not only to remember Andrea but also to encourage each of us to stay alert, to cherish life, and to value the people around us before it is too late.